Political science. Liberalism. Liberalism. Introduction. Liberalism is a group of political, social, and economic theories and the most dominant political ideology of the modern world. So, liberalism is not a single theory. It's a bunch of socio-political and economic theories which lead to some cardinal principles which all liberal states generally follow. Nowadays, most of the countries are liberal countries. Etymological meaning. The word liberal or liberalis is derived from the Latin word liber, which means free man. In the Middle Age, French people also used the word with the same meaning. The central idea of liberalism is also freedom or liberty. So, all those political, social and economic theories which constitutes liberalism centers around the basic concept of freedom or liberty. History and origin. History and origin. The theory of liberalism traces back to the 16th century. Since then, the cardinal principles of many historical events has enriched the theory of liberalism. Classical liberalism was first appeared in Greece through the manifestation of two principles, that are freedom of thought and freedom in the political sphere, that is direct democracy. So, the idea of a democratic form of government comes from the Greece where direct democracy prevailed. Thereafter, the Reformation movement in 16th century in England against religious orthodoxy in politics freed politics from the control of cathedral and gave liberalism the principle of secularism. Then the Puritan movement in 1640 in England against feudalism taught it the principle of social equality. After that, the Glorious Revolution in 1688 in England against autocracy of the monarch has made it an opponent to any kind of totalitarianism, which eventually led it to the French Revolution, which enriched liberalism with the principles of equality, liberty and justice. The American Revolution and the American Bill of Rights associated it with the concept of freedom and rights. Industrial Revolution and Renaissance in Europe introduced it with the principles of laissez-faire. And lastly, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia compelled it to take the principles of welfare state. Definition. It is very difficult to point out a universally acceptable definition of liberalism. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, liberalism is an idea which accepts freedom as the way of action and principles of the government, as a principle of the formation of the society, and as a way of life of the individual and society. According to the Oxford Concise Dictionary of Politics, it means the belief that it is the aim of politics to preserve individuals' right and maximize freedom of the choice. Robert S. Shell, in his noted article Liberalism, has stated that liberalism in ultimate analysis is a political ideology intimately associated with the birth and evolution of the capitalist world. L.T. Hobhouse describes liberalism as the belief of individual in constituting society based on self-governing power of personality. According to Sartori, liberalism is individual liberty, legal protection and the theory and practice of the constitutional state. Max Lerner remarked that liberalism is the creed philosophy and movement which is committed to freedom as the method and policy in the government and as an organizing principle in the society and as a way for the individual community. Webster Dictionary and Encyclopedia defines liberalism as a term indicating the tendency towards extending individual rights and liberties as against rigid political, economic, and bureaucratic authority. Politically, the term was formally used to denote a movement of progressive reforming government and has been applied at various times to the part of agitating for the particular kind of liberty. So, liberalism is not only a doctrine, it may be regarded as a philosophy, an ideal, a movement, an attitude, and a way of life. Concept. The concept of liberalism can be explained in various ways. In the narrow sense, liberalism is confined only within the political and economic life of human beings. That means, in the narrow sense, liberalism is a doctrine which regards individual liberty as the most important factor in the production and distribution of goods and in the matter of selection and removal of rulers. However, in the wide or broad sense, liberalism is a mental attitude which exists in all spheres of life. That means it exists in the intellectual, moral, religious, economic, and political life of human beings. The concept of liberalism can be discussed by dividing it in three spheres. In the political context, liberalism prioritizes individual liberty in the selection and removal of rulers. Such political concept of liberalism reflects in some principles of liberal states. The principles are universal adult suffrage, representative governmental structure, change of government by peaceful constitutional means, freedom of thought and expression, rule of law, multi-party system, democratic form of government and welfare state, etc. Liberalism strongly opposed to any kind of totalitarianism like dictatorship, monarchy, even communism. In the economic context, liberalism prioritizes individual liberty in the production and distribution of goods, which reflects in the principles of laissez-faire, free trade system, perfectly competitive market policy, freedom of production, private ownership of the means of production, right to private property and right to earn profit, etc. Liberalism in the economic sphere opposed to any kind of levying, licensing or any other kinds of restrictions over open market system. In the social context, liberalism believes in minimum state interference or control in the life of individual. So, it supports freedom from religious orthodoxy, secularism, social equality, freedom of mankind in relation to religion or morality. And it opposed to any kind of religious, social or moral restrictions. All these principles or all these aspects can be summarized or can be divided in two senses. In the negative sense, liberalism opposes any form of autocracy, dictatorship or monastic theory of sovereignty. That is any kind of totalitarianism.
However, in the positive sense, it aims to establish the principles of freedom, that is, the fundamental democratic ideas. So, liberalism stands as the midway between conservatism and socialism.
Classification. The journey of liberalism may be classified into three phases. Classical liberalism is the primary phase of liberalism. Liberal thoughts up to 19th century propagated by the liberalists starting from John Locke till prior to John Stuart Mill is described as the classical liberalism. Classical liberalism flow mainly in four streams. These are individualism, utilitarianism, positivism, idealism, etc. Economics like Adam Smith, David Ricardo, and of others are exponents of this theory. Revisional liberalism. The second phase of liberalism is revisional liberalism. Since the second half of the 19th century, particularly since the end of the First World War, extreme individualism and extreme capitalism faced strong reaction of the people. Thereafter, when the worldwide crisis of liberalism set in order to save itself from being an obsolete theory, liberalism adopted some socialist principles. This changed form of liberalism of the period from John Stuart Mill to the mid-17th of the 20th century marked as revisional liberalism. The two main streams of revisional liberalism are welfarism and pluralism. The third phase of liberalism is contemporary liberalism. In the post-Second World War period, the theory of welfare state propagated by revisional liberalists expanded the sphere of state's activity. But due to lack of money, the governments become unable to discharge such a wide range of responsibilities. So, they virtually wanted classical liberalism to be brought back. Such liberalism is known as contemporary liberalism. There are three streams of such liberalism: neoliberalism, liberal egalitarianism, liberal pluralism. Principles. Liberalism is a dynamic concept, so the principles are not static and final. They were modified several times with the change of time and situations. The basic principles and characteristics of liberalism are: individualism. It reproduces the belief that human beings are primarily individuals rather than subject to any collectivity. Therefore, liberals aim to build a society in which individuals are provided the freedom to pursue his or her own good or happiness. It believes that individuals alone own his person and he has the right to enrich his capabilities at its best without the intervention of others. And individual freedom is the only way to achieve that goal. For the realization of this principle, the liberalists wanted to keep the scope of state activities confined within the narrow limits of protecting individuals' inalienable right to life, property and liberty, ensuring justice in society, defending the country from foreign aggression, and carrying out welfare activities without interfering the individual liberty. So, liberal states grants some rights like right to freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of religion, right to privacy, and right to property. This theory was advocated by John Locke, Herbert Spencer, John Stuart Mill, David Ricardo, Robert Malthus, Adam Smith, and other economists and philosophers. In short, individualism seeks to achieve a society where state should not interfere in the political and economic life of its citizens. Next point is utilitarianism. Jeremy Bentham was the chief exponent of utilitarianism. According to Jeremy Bentham was the chief exponent of utilitarianism. According to this theory, the goal of society is to obtain the greatest happiness of the greatest number. It stimulated the creation of a representative government which can be changed through peaceful constitutional means. Thus, it ensures political equality and political liberty. That is universal adult suffrage and democracy, and it opposes any kind of totalitarianism. I will explain this term later. John Stuart Mill, Gingell, Little and Winch are the chief exponents of this theory. However, revisional liberalism seeks to harmonize the interest of majority and minority through the minority representation, like proportional representation. In short, utilitarianism means majority rules. The society or the state should make such policies which is beneficial for the majority of the people. Third point is anti-authoritarianism. Liberalism is opposed to all types of authoritarianism because it believes that authority is inimical to individuals' liberty. Liberalism maintains that any type of authority restricts the enjoyment of individuals' freedom and it fixes a limit on free exercise of his will. Liberalism believes that state authorities should be subordinate to individual liberty. Liberalism opposed to any type of totalitarianism, that is Nazism, fascism, monarchy as well as communism. It also opposes hero worship, racism, one-party system, undemocratic activities, warmongering foreign policy, colonialism, imperialism, establishment of social ownership over the means of production, etc. It supports popular sovereignty, democracy and multi-party system. So, liberalism opposed to any kind of state control over human life, be it a dictatorship or communism. Any kind of control over citizens' life is forbidden in liberal countries. Fourth point is equality. Liberals believe that all individuals are born equal in terms of two equal rights, namely legal equality and political equality. Here it is to be noted that economic equality or financial equality is not supported by liberalism. This is the main difference between liberalism and socialism. By legal equality, liberalists mean the law should be same for all and all would be guided according to impartial law. Thus, liberalism seeks to establish the rule of law through the principles of equality before law and equal protection of law. By political equality, liberalism implies equal right for all persons to elect governmental representatives and be elected as a governmental representative. That is establishment of representative democratic government and universal adult franchise. Thus, liberals are enthusiastic to provide equal chances for everyone to realize their full potential. So, the main point is liberals seeks to establish political and legal equality. Political equality means representative government. And legal equality means law should be same for all. Fifth point is liberty. Advocacy of individual liberty is the main theme of liberalism. As we all know, liberalism means free men. Liberalists believe that individual liberty should be extended in all spheres: social, domestic, civil, political, economic, etc. By social liberty, liberalists mean the elimination of all kinds of social disparities and establishment of social equality. By civil liberties, they seek to establish rule of law. By domestic liberty, they want to establish gender equality and right to privacy of family. By political liberty, they mean principles of universal adult suffrage, representative government, democracy, right to self-determination of nations, local and regional autonomy, popular sovereignty, international cooperation, etc. Economic liberty implies that the tax load should be fairly distributed among all and there should be no taxation without representation. That is fiscal liberty. It also implies unrestricted freedom in trade, commerce, contract, price, and private ownership of the means of production. Personal liberty entails freedom of thought, expression, concise belief, religion. International liberty means maintaining world peace and preventing the possibility of war by strengthening mutual cooperation among states and recognizing the right to self-determination of nations. Again, it opposes to imperialism and any kind of foreign interference over any nation. Justice. Liberalism seeks to establish justice through an impartial judicial system to interpret law and protect rights and freedom of individuals. Because rule of law cannot be established without establishing an impartial judiciary system. Seventh point is laissez-faire. The principle of laissez-faire is the basic economic principles of liberalism. Actually, liberalism has two basic economic principles. First one is laissez-faire and the second one is the right to private property. These are economic principles of liberalism. The principles of laissez-faire is the basic economic principle of liberalism. It denotes abstention of government interference in the working of free market, and it opposes any kind of levying, licensing or any other kinds of restrictions over open market system. They support free trade system and perfectly competitive market policy. Adam Smith, David Ricardo and other economists are advocates of this principle. So, according to the principle of laissez-faire, government should not interfere in the market system. Perfectly competitive market means where demand and supply decides what is to be produced and what is not to be produced. Right to private property. According to the economic concept of liberalism, right to private property is the basic necessity for the self-express and self-development of human beings. Though neoliberalists are in support of imposing some restrictions over right to property, but all liberalists are strongly against the abolition of right to private property. This is the main difference between socialism and liberalism, that socialism does not recognize the right to private property. They support that the means production should be under government ownership. But liberalism supports the right to private property and the right to earn profit. Next point is welfareism. Scholars like J.M. Keynes, William Beveridge, Herbert Lehman, Austin Rene, William Temple propagated the theory of welfare state. Neoliberalism seeks to establish welfare state, that is, a system whereby the state undertakes to protect the interest of citizens, especially those in financial and social need, by means of some welfare policies and programs, like introducing of dynamic tax system, adoption of state planning, licensing and nationalization of some trade and industries, recognition of subsidies, etc. In its crisis days, liberalism tries to collaborate with the concept of communism by expanding the scope of state authority. The concept of welfare state is the outcome of that. As we can see that these policies of welfareism is very similar to policies of socialism. So, liberalism tries to collaborate with the concept of socialism
in its crisis days.
Other principles. The cardinal principles of liberalism include Mellorism, meritocracy, toleration, multiculturalism, universalism, pluralism, idealism, and positivism, etc.
Here in this chart, you can see the summarized version of all theories related to liberalism. I have already explained individualism, utilitarianism, anti-authoritarianism. Now I will explain the other principles. In idealism, idealism believes that a perfect life or situation can be achieved by our own activity. So, we should step forward to the achievement of a perfect society. Positivism. Positivism believes that we should gain knowledge through reasoning and logic. And experience about how the society works. So, we should not imagine how a society works or how a society should work. Rather, scientifically, we should analyze how the society generally works. Next point is multiculturalism. There are 3 points: multiculturalism, universalism, and pluralism. They are quite similar. Multiculturalism supports the coexistence, collaboration, and integration of nations and preservation of different culture. Universalism. According to universalism, human possesses a cohesive morality despite of their social, economic, and cultural differences. All ideologies, opinions, and cultures must live side by side peacefully. Pluralism. All the ideologies, opinion, and cultures must live side by side peacefully. So, all these 3 principles are quite same or similar. Next point is Mellorism. According to Mellorism, through reasoning, individual can make intelligent judgments and resolve disputes and disagreements by means of debate and discussion and step ahead towards development. So, not by war but by discussion, we can solve any and every problem. This is the main theme of this theory. Next point is meritocracy. All the individuals cannot claim same level of merit, intelligence and capacity. So, there must be a clear difference in remuneration. Here, with this theory, liberalism differs from socialism. According to socialism, everyone should be rewarded according to their contribution to the society. But according to meritocracy, everyone should be rewarded according to their merits and intelligence. The next point is welfareism. I have already discussed this point. Again, laissez-faire, I have already discussed it. Next point is consequentialism. According to consequentialism, the moral value of an action should be judged based on its ultimate result as a whole. So, there should not be any moral or religious responsibility over human life. The outcome of his action tells us whether his act is moral or immoral. These are the basic theories behind liberalism. I will provide this chart in shorts and post.
Criticism. Liberalism has been criticized on various grounds. Number 1. This theory is extremely flexible and thus lacks in clarity. Difference of opinion prevail among liberal thinkers on the scope of the role of state, the right of individuals and the concept of liberty. Number 2. Liberalism is self-contradictory theory. It recognizes state authority and individual liberty at the same time. So it is confusing and ambiguous. Number 3. According to Harold Lasky, without economic equality, social and political liberty and justice become meaningless. Without economic equality, social and political equality, liberty and justice become meaningless. Number 4. The concept of open market system, laissez-faire, leads to imperialism, new imperialism and economic exploitation of the weaker community. Number 5. The concept of pluralistic society may lead to anarchism. Number 6. The concept of consequentialism may lead to an unethical society. Number 7. Liberal thinkers could not deny the contemporary beliefs like Locke supports monarchism. So the liberal thinkers from the time they came supports the prevailing system of that time. Importance. In spite of the above criticisms, the significance and contribution of the liberal theory cannot be ignored. Number 1, it established the basic human ideals like political and social equality, liberty, justice, fraternity, toleration, welfareism, etc. Number 2, it freed politics from religious orthodoxy. Number 3, it gives strength to fight against feudalism in medieval period. Number 4, it brought the footstep towards democracy, socialism, industrialization, world peace and cooperation and progress. So, even Marxist thinkers have not denied the historical role of the political ideology of liberalism in the contemporary period. As a result, it had established itself to be the most dominant political theory in the world today.
If you like this answer, please share it with your friends and please subscribe the channel. Thank you.